This here podcast has been brought to you by Cine.nl. This must you see.
Will you please listen up to what I have to say? Cause we're in for some old-fashioned wrestling today. Not the violent, oily, opposerish kind, but the kind that involves pins and thumbs you will find. Cause it's thumb wrestling time. Yes, it's thumb wrestling time. So we will discuss pros and cons, faults and pluses of all your favorite movies. And we will ponder the merits of cinema in this WrestleMania. Cause it's thumb wrestling time. Yes, it's thumb wrestling time. Yes, it's thumb wrestling time.
Hello, pod people. Wow! Yes, that is from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You, my friend, are listening to Thumb Wrestling, the podcast in which I, Ruud Vos, will be discussing one certain film with a guest with whom I disagree about that certain film. And this is episode '71. And as you can hear, it's one of our English episodes. We've had a few before where I spoke with people who are multiple time zones away. Same for this one. Although previously I spoke with people who were in the Los Angeles area, so in the West. This time I'm looking towards the East. I'm speaking with someone who is even further away geographically, namely in Australia. In other words, the Southern Hemisphere. And my guest is Australian filmmaker Chris Elena, whom I know via a mutual connection and friend of the show, Theodore Steen, with whom I previously spoke about Jupiter Ascending. If you can understand Dutch, that is one to listen. I think that Chris has thrown a few viewing parties on Twitter that Theodore used to be a part of, and they share a mutual love for a certain film that will be mentioned somewhere along the podcast, but I'll leave that a mystery. Chris made a couple of short films already. His latest one is the only one that I have seen, and I can really recommend it if you have the chance to see it, maybe in one of the online film festivals where it was selected. It is called Audio Guide. And despite there being very little story similarities between the two, by Chris' own admission, it has been somewhat influenced by his viewing experience of the film that we are discussing in this episode. And that is the 2006 action weirdness by director Joe Carnahan, that is Smokin Aces. The plot of it is so convoluted that making a summary wouldn't do it much justice, but I'm going to try a bit anyway. The FBI overhear a plot to assassinate a mafia mole who is willing to testify against the rest of the mafia called Buddy Aces, a former Las Vegas showman and magician who has turned turncoat. The mafia is sending in a specialist from Sweden to take out Buddy's heart. At the same time, a lot of other very weird assassins are also being sent in by other mobsters to try and kill Buddy, while also the FBI is trying to protect the guy, and his lawyers are sending in a couple of people to extract him from Las Vegas to another place, and all are converging upon the same hotel. After a big shitstorm has raged on for quite a long time, turns out that Buddy is the son of the big mob boss that he's trying to inform on, and the mob boss is after his heart because he needs a heart transplant. Also, the mob boss used to be an FBI man who infiltrated the mob and has decimated it from the inside. And in the end, the FBI guy played by Ryan Reynolds, who has become very disillusioned with the FBI and with everything that has happened and that he has found out, pulls the plug on Buddy and the mob boss and they die. He resigns. The end. I don't think I've touched on a 20th of the movie. Well, anyway, let's go to the conversation with Chris Elena on Smokin Aces. But first, briefly, this.
Show me the money.
Hey, do you like this podcast? Well, this podcast likes you too. just for listening to it, even if you're a casual listener. But if you like to be liked, you can be liked even more by donating a small monthly sum of money to us on Patreon. And if you do, you get rewards to show you how much we like you. What am I saying? How much we love you. So visit patreon.com/duimpjeworstelen and get even more warm feelings. And even if you don't, no worries. Thank you simply for listening.
3, 2, 1, fire!
I have a tendency to ramble here and there, so you can always just go...
Rambling is great. Let's ramble.
Perfect. You are speaking my language. I'm excited. I can talk at length about this film, and I'll probably mention a few random mothers as we go, and yeah, all good. So
that's
perfect.
Great. That's all fine. I think we're set to start it. So, what is Smokin Aces to you?
To me, Smokin Aces is... I had this prepared and now I've lost it. Basically, to me, Smokin Aces is a loud cacophony of beautiful directing, beautiful color grading, beautiful editing, and is ultimately a very loud, obnoxious opera of ideas, movement, and excitement. That's what it is to me. This movie is more of a visual feast for me. And kind of more like an essay on directing and blocking, weirdly enough. That's what it is to me.
Also, I was just wondering, when did you see this movie for the first time?
When I saw this movie for the first time.
I saw it when, it's going to reveal my age, so apologies. I saw this when I was 16, which is the perfect, a 16-year-old boy seeing this is like...
Yeah.
I saw it when I was 16 when it came out, so 2007. It was rated R here, so no one under 18 could see it. So I waited and waited and waited, and then I saw the film, and I immediately fell in love. And throughout the years, it's caused me grief and joy up until this moment. So about 14 years ago.
Yeah, I only saw it because it was a candidate for the podcast. So I was way older when I saw it for the first time.
Yeah.
37, because that's my age right now. But
that's fair.
So that gives me a very different perspective on this film.
That's fair.
But I would say that the mini review you just gave it, I couldn't poke many holes in that, because when it comes to the part of the filmmaking itself, I would have to sort of agree that it shows a lot of talent and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that most of the annoyances for me were now on a script level, if anything.
Yes, I understand. I do.
We'll get into that.
It taught me how to... Yeah, I'll save it. But yes, I know exactly what you mean. And
I mean my criticism. We'll get to my criticism. I want to first give you a chance to just go ahead and talk about what you enjoy about this film.
Okay, cool. Do you want me to jump in now?
Yeah,
great. What do I enjoy about it? It's something when you watch a lot of so-called Tarantino knockoffs. That's what they always call them, Tarantino ripoffs. Which I hate that. I hate that saying. I hate that phrase because I can see what they're talking about.
I know what you mean, but I wouldn't call this a Tarantino knockoff. If I would call it a knockoff, I would call it a Guy Ritchie knockoff, but made by someone with more talent. Because it becomes a big farce, and lots of things are supposed to be funny. I don't think they always land, but that's all right. And but it has more of the vibe of an early Guy Ritchie movie, like especially Snatch. It reminded me of a lot. But I enjoyed this way more than I enjoy Snatch. I think
I appreciate that.
I think Snatch aged more poorly. It shows his age. Yeah. While this one, it's you can see it's a product of 2006, but still, it works on more levels than that.
No, I agree. It's funny you said that about Guy Ritchie because I kind of agree because Guy Ritchie's films and this have... There's one big problem I have with Smoking Aces. There's a couple of problems, but I still love it all the same. But there is one problem this has... I think script-wise it struggles with badly, even directing-wise that Guy Ritchie's films have as well. It's the juggling of tones.
Yeah.
Guy Ritchie's films can't juggle tones. He can't juggle serious and comedy very well. He's great at comedy. He's very good at comedy at times. Whereas when it becomes serious, it is such a downhill drop with a Guy Ritchie film. Like people really get murdered. People really get hurt. And it doesn't feel like they're in the same film. It feels like two films at odds with each other. Smokin Aces I don't think has that. I think Smokin Aces has some problems with juggling tones, especially towards the end where it becomes this very serious, dour film.
It sometimes has these musical cues where it becomes very melodramatical, but it becomes very melodramatical for all the characters. And I don't know if you're picking sides in this movie, but you're supposed to feel bad for all of them. Well, probably some you like more than others, and that becomes a very weird thing.
Yes, and that's what I loved about it as well. I love that all of a sudden the movie's like, you've been on a journey with them. You know, look at what they've been through. I'm like, that man just murdered 12 people. What do you want from me? Whereas Guy Ritchie films, I don't think he does that. I don't think Guy Ritchie films have that empathy when the tone shifts. This does. This tries to have an empathy for everyone. And I'm like, all right, you've won me. That was more my point. That I think this is more considerate with its struggling of tonal shifts than a Guy Ritchie film. But yeah,
I would have to give you that.
Appreciate it. I'm glad you said that. I love that you said that because I'm like, oh, good, I agree. Yeah.
Well, you might like it more, but I'm sure that there's a lot of common ground in this. There are certainly things that I have a bit of trouble with, but there are also stuff that I think has also not aged as well as it could have. Shall we get into that? Because
let's do it.
It's not especially. I don't think this is intent, but it is sort of what it shows off. And in 2006, I know that feminism wasn't as popular as it is now, but it sort of prolongs a trope of all feminists are lesbians.
Yes, it does. That's another big problem I have with it. A big one. And they give ridiculous speeches that are borderline meant to be laughed at. And I'm like, nope.
Well, she's not. She's sort of saying sensible things in there as well, but it's mostly her tone of Tajani. What's her name? Character. Henson.
What's her character's name? Taraji P. Henson, her character.
I'm going to say this. There are so many characters in here that I have not bothered to write down the character's name. So every time I refer to a character, I will use the actor's name.
I will too. That's okay. I've seen this movie about 50 times. So I can't give you half their characters' names. We're fine.
No, and I made a list of it's Taraji Henson, but the actor's name. But I do have a list of all the actors who are in here, and it's a long list of all the people I knew previously and I'm familiar with. So there's something good about that. Yeah, like well done. Some were new discoveries, so well done for that. But
yes.
Just to get back to that point of feminists are lesbians, then it also gets into the thing that gets into sort of a chasing Amy territory, like pretty lesbians are only lesbians until they meet a right hot guy.
Yep, who will save them in their darkest time. Yeah, I know. Oh, God, it has aged. Yes, some things have aged. Yes, I agree. Oh, dear. And then they're two of my favorite characters in the film, despite those glaring flaws about them, where it's like, a man wrote this. It was a man in 2006 who wrote this. Yeah. Oh dear, we're in trouble.
You mean especially Alicia Keys?
I do like Alicia Keys. I love Taraji P. Henson in this film. Mm-hmm. She's one of my favorites, and I think Alicia Keys is great in this. Yeah, like I love that. Yeah. No, I think
She caught me by surprise. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Does he look like a bitch?
Shall we go through the list of? I can just name them and just just how amazed I was with seeing them all in here. I didn't know Ryan Reynolds was in here to start with.
Okay.
Then you get Ray Liotta. Of course, Carnahan, the director, worked with him previously on Narc, so that's probably why he's in it.
Yep.
Then you see these two old, just standard mafia actors you just know by face, Alex Rocco and David Proval. Of course, Jeremy Piven, who plays the lead. Then you get Ben Affleck. I did not remember that he would be in this, so again, caught by surprise.
Yes.
Peter Berg. I'd seen him a couple of times before, like in his own film, Very Bad Things. Coleman, Andy Garcia, Alicia Keys, Taraji Henson, Nestor Carbonell, Kevin Durant, Chris Pine. This basically discovery of Chris Pine, this film. Maurice Sterling, Tommy Flanagan. Also great to see him pop up in this. He's the only one who made it to the sequel, which is even weirder.
I know. No. One of the Tremor, the brothers, one of them was in there as well.
Okay.
I can't remember who. I don't remember who. But I don't talk about the sequel. That didn't happen. But yes, sorry. Go ahead.
Then you get Curtis Armstrong, Booger from Revenge of the Nerds. He's in here. Joel Edgerton. Also, before we really break it, but also a very weird part. Jason Bateman. Yes. I don't know what the fuck he's doing in this film, but he's in here.
Yes.
And Matthew Fox. Matthew Fox was the last name I put down, the one who's introduced the last, and I thought, he's in here as well? Oh my God.
Yep. I know. The film's a very weird... the film's an anomaly in a lot of ways, because all these actors are in it, and half of them are like in it for about 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, and they're all strange. Like very few of those actors are play normal people in this film. The Matthew Fox thing is weird. He's got a mullet in that scene. I love that scene, by the way.
I love Matthew Fox in that scene. I also love Nestor Carbonell in that scene.
So do I.
Least the way he acts like, well, sort of a bit of a doofus FBI guy who's interviewing him. Yeah. The way he plays playing that tickles me.
Yeah, me too. And the way it ends, the way that scene where they're having that conversation, because am I dying? And it's like, we're all dying. And I'm like, I love this movie. What the fuck is this? Well, what do you... Yeah, sorry.
Well, once Nestor Carbonell stabs Matthew Fox and he leans into him and starts whispering shit to him, then it gets a bit too weird for me, maybe. Like, this is a bit too random. But that ties into a point I'm going to make later.
Yes. Okay, keep that point, because that's that's one of the moments out of the many. There's about 5 moments in this film where it just does what it wants, and it really just goes, as you say, random and goes strange. And they're the moments where I'm just looking at it going, I love you. I'm in love. Like, what the fuck is this? It really is, and that's one of them, where they have a little existential moment where it's like, don't worry, you're dying, but we're all dying. Heaven will hold it against you. And it's like, what the fuck is this beautiful film? It's not beautiful. It's odd, but I think it works for me. I love it. And then you've got Jason Bateman, who is in there for 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes in one of the strangest scenes in the film, which is saying a lot. Very, very odd. And then the Ben Affleck stuff.
Yeah, Bateman, he just sort of broken a bit through with Arrested Development, and then you see him in this. Well, he'd also had sort of a weird cameo in Dodgeball the year before, but this one takes the cake. But in that scene, there's like this head of a bunny costume in there, and it's supposed to be random in that scene. Like, oh, that's weird. But the whole movie is that weird. The whole movie is that room. Yeah. So it doesn't stick out anymore.
Yeah, I love that description. I love that description so much. It is absolutely, that scene is the movie. The bunny head is the film. It's like, why is that there? That's the whole film. Why is that happening? That's what I adore about it.
Yeah. The way you say this just reminds me of what's the Buckaroo Banzai. What's that watermelon doing here? I'll explain later. They never do. It's just...
No. No, and you're so happy that's in there and that happened. But it's no, it is truly a collection of things happening. Yeah. Things, not plot. Things. Like it is very much. It's got its own language. It is very peculiar. The whole film is the structure, the way the plot progresses, the character decisions, the moments that they have with other people for no reason, the random out of nowhere empathy where you are meant to care for every person, even though they're all just odd or terrible. Yeah, all the stuff you're saying is, I'm like, thank you. You're rattling off my list of things that I love. But yes,
some of them are meant as criticisms.
Not to me. I'm like, I don't know how you got a hold of my notes, but I appreciate it. No, it is really very much a love it or leave it sort of thing, where it's like when the bunny head approach this film of things are going to happen. They're not going to make sense, but they're going to happen. The first half of the scene will make sense, and then the things they do after will not. You either go, wow, that good on you, really inventive. I'm really feeling this energetic, like loose randomness of the whole thing. Or you go, wow, Universal weren't watching you make this film and you really had too much money and time. Get out. This is the worst thing. But it's funny, the budget of this film was only $15 million. And when they interviewed Ryan Reynolds, they said, Ryan Reynolds, they're like, wow, what was that like? And he goes, no one got paid. And I said, really? They said, no, we liked Joe Carnahan and the script was bonkers and we didn't think he could get it made. So we all just took the minimum to make it. And I'm like, it feels that way. Yeah. This feels like it feels like, it really does feel that way. It's like a billionaire funded his own movie. It does not feel like a studio film whatsoever.
But at least it didn't turn out like The Room.
No, or the other one. What's that other film where that billionaire's son, Getty? What's that horror film? The Evil Within? Do you know that film?
Sorry, The Evil Within?
Yeah, do you know that film?
I haven't seen it.
There's a horror movie called The Evil Within where Getty, the billionaire Getty, who... Yeah. His grandson put $5 million of his own money in to make a horror film called The Evil Within.
All right.
And apparently it's one of the most deluded, nonsensical, I haven't seen it, films ever made. Yeah. And the guy was doing so much acid, but he had $5 million to put into this horror film. And it's like, that's what this feels like. But this one looks like a studio released it. It's very kind of Universal. Yeah. Oh,
very much so. So you saw it for the first time when you were 16. I think when it came out, I was working in a video store in Nijmegen. At least that's where I first saw it, lying around. And colleagues of mine said, yeah, that movie's pretty cool, but I just didn't get around to it. But that's when I was about 23. I think I still could have dug it by then.
Yeah.
Very much so, maybe. I'm not sure because, I think that's sort of maybe the breaking point where I got more into sort of art housey stuff, and I became a bit of a snob in that way, and then I veered a bit more back. So I think I have more understanding now than I would have had maybe, let's say, 7 years ago for this film. But it's still, I can also see a lot of faults with it.
That's fair. That's very fair.
But you just fell in love with it immediately.
I did. I saw the trailer and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a great action film. I'm in. And I saw it, and what I saw was a series of... there's a certain type of film I love, and I think this film and another film, which I'll mention later or soon, it's part of my recommended list, that made me fall in love with a certain type of film, which is go for broke, throw things up against a wall, just do everything. Who cares if it's going to fail? Let's just fucking do it. Sorry, I hope I can swear. Let's just do it.
Oh, yeah, you can.
Let's just fucking do it. Let's just throw everything we can at the film. Let's make it a cacophony of images, ideas, thoughts, and just go to town. And that's what I got from this. And I'm like, all right, I'm very excited by this. This is exciting. And I was wanting to I was starting to become a filmmaker then. And I saw this film where, again, there's a bunny's rabbit head there, the Ben Affleck scene, which I don't want to spoil in case no one's seen it. But the Ben Affleck's last scene in the film with Chris Pine.
Well, I'm pretty sure that people only listen to it when they've seen the film, so you can spoil anything. It's
Spoiler alert. When Ben Affleck gets shot in half an hour into the film, and they decide to have a moment where Chris Pine hovers over his body and mimes a conversation between the two where Ben Affleck's dead body absolves Chris Pine of all his sins. I was like, all right. This is I am for you and you are for me, this movie. No action film would do that.
I will say this. That's my favorite bit of the movie.
That's fair. It's probably the best scene in the film, in theory. In theory, it's the best scene in the film. It's fantastic. Yeah. And they do it a few more times like that, where they try and get existential about death, which, mind you, Joe Carnahan did The Grey shortly after, so that makes sense. I saw this movie where it was beautifully made, beautifully shot. Like, the color grade on this is stunning. And it made me fall in love with the idea that movies can just go bonkers and just do whatever the fuck they want. So that was the weird film that did it. Yeah. I know I could watch a Terry Gilliam film and get that, but I got it from a weird action film. It's probably because I got
it from Terry Gilliam films, probably.
That's fair. And I struggle with Terry Gilliam, so make of that what you will. I really do. Whereas this one, I was sold to it as an action film. When I went in and it was something else and something very odd and weird. And I could see it failing at times, but I was happy that it was doing it because it was making me go, I love that you even bothered to go that far. So I fell in love with it at 16. And then I watched it more and more. And then there was a moment I had with that film in film school.
Yeah.
When I just finished school, I was 18, and I had two options. Go to a university to learn screenwriting, learn creative writing as a whole, and screenwriting as a major thing. Or go to film school, just go straight to film school. So I had two, and I was like, all right, what am I doing? I went to the film school going, all right, here it is. And it was orientation day. The minute I walk in, there's a guy... This story is about 2 minutes, so please excuse that. When I walk in, I'm like, oh, film school, I'm going to learn everything. And as I walked in, a guy with a scarf, a Where's Wally type scarf, goes, my parents are paying for this one. The next degree is on me. And I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble. And I get in there, I sit down, I'm wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt, and I'm like, this is already not boding well. I've never worn a scarf in my life. The lecturer comes in, doesn't even say hi. He goes, name a film that taught you about filmmaking, that got you into filmmaking. And went around the room. There were 5 answers. There were 7. There was The Dark Knight. There was The Godfather. Yeah. There was Fight Club. And there was, what was the other one? American Beauty. Got a lot of American Beauty. This was in 2009, mind you. So, yeah, it was still a thing. And I came up to me and I said, Smokin Aces. And 3 guys booed in the front of the class. The lecturer's face dropped. And then where's the guy with the scarf gets up and turns and goes, go on, explain that one. And he even did one of these. And I'm like, why are you waving your hand? And then, and I just thought no one had seen this. And I'm like, I'll just say that because I'll give an honest answer. Like, I've seen those other films, but I saw them, I don't know, at a time where I was like 12 or 13. I'm not going to trust my opinion at 18. I just want to, and then he goes, go on, explain that one. And then the lecturer joined him going, you can do better than that. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. And then the guy with the scarf, he goes, why? Why does it have any significance? And I'm like, your pick has a fucking floating bag in it. And I'm like, it has a floating bag. It's meant to be magic and beautiful. But my movie's dumb. And then the lecturer goes, why? Tell me why. And I said, because it taught me about color grading. It taught me about blocking a scene. It taught me about editing. It taught me about multi-narrative storytelling and how do you tell it within the confines of a genre. And it taught me about what you can do with a genre piece and how you can just make it bigger, grander, more interesting, more weird. Because Smokin Aces, by all accounts, is a dumb action film with a very thin plot. So what happens when you add the Ben Affleck, Chris Pine scene? What happens when you add Jason Bateman and the bunny head? What happens when you add Nesta Carpenter and Matthew Fox and that existential moment they have? What happens when you have the tremor scene where they're jumping out of the elevator in the most ridiculous display of masculinity I've ever seen? And I said all of that taught me about the logistics and both the logistics of making a movie and how you can make it grander, bigger, when by all means it's not really. And two, how do you tell a story that's kind of dull and kind of has a genre constraints? So I said that. And they still weren't convinced. And I said, okay, fair enough. Crank 2's my next choice. And then they started getting angrier. Then I was shit stirring. Then I was like, all right, fuck you, Crank 2. And then lastly, I said, they said, well, why are you here? And I said, well, I want to make movies. I want to learn about celluloid and how to shoot on film because I love how, the process of making. And they said, no, film's dead. We're going digital now. Who uses film? And I'm like, bye. I left left halfway through that introduction, and then I went to screenwriting. But the point was that Smokin Aces kind of led me to this fight with these snobs, and I'm like, why? And then as throughout the years as I've watched it, I can see some of its flaws and some of its shortcomings, but I still love it as how I described it.
The thing that interests me most about that story is how they take it as an affront that you would say that, while if they really look down on that film so much, they have won the debate before it even starts in their own view.
Exactly.
So why even bother, and why the anger?
Yeah.
I just don't get that.
Yeah, exactly. If it's such a nothing film, why does it anger you so much that I said it? And
So that makes it not about the film, that makes it about them and not wanting someone like you in their club.
Exactly. Exactly. And I was like, and then I said something, I said the paper bag thing, the plastic bag thing to the scarf guy, and he got offended, mind you. And then I also said I left my, what did I say? I also said, I left my copy of American Beauty at home. Sorry, I'll bring it with me to the next class. And he just looked repulsed. And I'm like, you had no fun, man. Movies are fun. Well, yeah, it was a very strange moment. But it's funny that it showed me what Smokin Aces looks like to a film snob. Like, when you say film snob as a joke, but you're talking about people who just have no room for anything other than the IMDb top 250. And it's like, all right, I've learned the greatest lesson I can from this class. Expand your horizons and don't ever be snobby about anything. So, yeah, thanks, Smokin Aces. But it was definitely about them. Yeah.
Have you ever maybe run into any one of those guys since then? Or you wouldn't even recognize them maybe from that one?
I heard about one, I think. I think I've got the right guy because I heard their names briefly. I heard one got into this film festival, the same one as Audio Guide did recently, the last movie I made, the last movie I finished. And that same film, people were calling misogynist. So I was like, full circle. But I don't know if it's the right person. I could just be projecting like they were, but that's it. And I've been waiting to see the lecturer since, and I've been waiting to tell him, hey, my movie got into a film festival and it's inspired by Smokin Aces. Thank you. And then just to watch his face drop. So, no. Otherwise, not really.
You're not one too close.
No, but I when they do,
But you are one.
I am. Oh no, I am with them. With them, I will. And I'm going to say it. I shot on film as well. Thank you for the advice. Oh, was it film or digital? And then I'm just going to rat. And I'm going to also tell them I also watched this beautiful film called Deuce Bigelow, Mal Gigolo, and watch their face drop as well. Anything just to piss them off. Yeah.
I wonder what would happen if you would have said like a film title like Rubber. Like one that is in a very weird category of it looks quite good, but it's also a movie that quite trolls its audience.
Yeah. I think
would they appreciate that or not?
I think because
it plays with.
I think as the director's French, I would have gotten away with it. No one in Smokin Aces is French, so I'm screwed. So, I don't know. So I've had a bit of a journey with this movie.
I'm serious, and don't call me Shirley.
Yeah. Well, when you first named this film and said it's because this is why I left film school, I gave it a first preliminary short bit of watch where, but I didn't really get very far, and I already sent you a message saying, yeah, I think this is the one. And that does have to do where I was still, well, within 15 minutes from the starting point, and it was just people talking.
Yep.
Just talking. And now I made notes now, like 18 minutes in, there's still just only people talking about just setting up everything that's going to happen there. And then you get away from that bit of, well, let's say it's a montage of just people talking and explaining stuff like that. And then you get a couple more scenes with just people talking. It takes 30 minutes before anything really happens in this. And that's where Ben Affleck and his cronies get shot.
Yep. That's the moment. Because that's the moment it tells you the movie that we've told you you're going to watch, the movie you thought you were seeing, is dead. We have killed that movie. When you kill the most known name in your cast, and they die like that, that's it. That's the end of. And did you notice that after that scene, exposition went to almost a bare minimum? Not a bare minimum, but they cut about 70% of that exposition.
Yeah, well, it goes from almost completely tell, don't show to just showing stuff and just stuff happening from that.
Yeah. I also think it's intentional that they did that, where it's such an info dump, and then it's setting up the players and the cars and the guns, and then it just goes weird.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't stop being weird. The guy, Joel Edgerton, with the face, and then going into that John Cale song, Big White Cloud, and I'm like, nah, that movie at the beginning is dead. That's everyone who paid to see that has walked out by now. It really is that. It's so yeah.
But it's especially because of that introduction, just a load of talking and then names flashing in the screen. That's what reminds me most of Guy Ritchie, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, it also turns into a bit of a farce, especially with the elevators near the ending.
Yeah.
And that also has a sort of a Guy Ritchie quality of stuff tying up together there. But in between, maybe it becomes more of its own thing.
I will say too that I think it kind of becomes a reverse Guy Ritchie film, because in Guy Ritchie films, everything wraps up neatly. Always. Yeah. Every film he's ever made, it's always a neat ending. And it's like, but we gotcha. Narration and, Hugh Grant winking. And I'm like, okay. Whereas this one, it's the opposite. Everything becomes a disaster and everything becomes fucked. It gets unraveled when it didn't need to. It's the reverse, I think. But I know what you mean, definitely.
Well, the FBI story sort of wraps up.
That's true.
Well, maybe not neatly, but it does wrap up.
It wraps up, but even
I'll say that the second favorite thing of mine of this film is the ending. Just Ryan Reynolds in the room pulling the plugs.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay.
For what this movie had, I thought that was a sort of a perfect ending. Like him just going, yeah, fuck this. And it's also maybe the first time that I sort of like his character, because during the movie, he and Ray Liotta just sort of seem FBI fuck-ups where on the one hand, I just don't get why these two guys are being put on this case, except for they overheard something a mafiosi said on a scout mission.
Yeah,
then they're being kept in the dark, where I also don't get why they even do that. That's just weird.
Why they keep them in the dark? Let me see if I can answer this, because I don't think I can. Why do they keep them in the dark? I think it's because they don't think these guys have much muster. Like, they don't think Andy Garcia doesn't think these guys are all that great. That's why would you assign these guys? It's because they seem like the most gullible and the most unaware of what's happening. So they can just say, hey, can you monitor the situation while we sort it out over here? Yeah. And the
Yes.
reason I think they don't tell them is because the FBI looks bad in that story. The story of where they shoot Yeah.
But, big but. Mm-hmm. I understand why they don't tell them about what is the big reveal at the end, which we'll get into later. The big thing that is happening within the FBI, which is the important thing. But what I do really not get is why they're not even told that the deal with Buddy Aces has fallen through. They could have at least been told that. because now they're just standing around there and doing even worse thing that makes the FBI look even worse in that situation.
Yeah.
Fucking up a situation with loads of assassins in a building.
There's two things I can say to that, but you're not wrong. I will say two things that might justify it. One, it feels like when the deal with Buddy Aces falls through and them getting to the apartments or getting to the hotel, it feels like there's about 10 minutes, 15 minutes worth of time in between that. Like, it feels like they just race over. But in that time, we cover so much. So maybe it's a thing where they just raced over and they didn't want to say anything over the phone because then those guys will ask questions. If they just turn up and take over, it won't be a problem. But unfortunately, in that time, fucking everything goes balls up. That's one.
Yeah.
And two, what's the second reason why they wouldn't do that? It would be because... Oh, I had a good thing for this. A, because it didn't have enough time, but two, because then those guys would ask questions and they probably wouldn't go ahead doing their job if they're like, hey, no, don't, the deal's fallen through. Then they'd have to reveal why. Do you know what I mean? I think that they were keeping him in the dark because they didn't want it to reveal that the FBI... I'm justifying an ending that I think...
Maybe they should at least be there to hold off some of the assassins so they don't get to Buddy. Yeah. Before they can get the heart out. Maybe that's part of it.
There's that too. Mind you, the ending is like the least thing for me, where for me, I was in love with everything else. With the ending, I'm like, go for your life. Sure. Like, really, it's the thing I'm like, that's why I'm surprised you loved the last scene, because I was like, okay. My second favorite scene's where they rush out of the elevator, but yeah.
I'm from the Netherlands. We're one of the first countries in the world that made euthanasia legal, so... admissible by law, so maybe it's my national thing here.
You're just there going, oh, thank you so much. Shout out to the Netherlands, and it's like, what? It's just
I actually once went to this European event where people from different countries were invited to say, well, what stereotypes do you have about the other countries that are here? And the Dutch, they got like weed, hookers, and euthanasia. That's what people think of us in Europe.
I wish we had that. That's the best. You guys have the best reputation. I love that I now have another way to sell this film to people. This Dutch euthanasia doco is astounding. Just give it to people and they're like, what the fuck is this? Oh dear. That's fair. That's a great reputation. I'm envious.
I love the smell of thumbs in the morning.
It's also one of the things that I found really weird about this film, that it seems like there's a period of which in real time only takes about 5 minutes, which is stretched over 70.
Yep.
People are in the elevator so long in this film. And it's because it's cross-cut and stuff like that. But it's basically just, well, you're back to the ranch, the idea. Like, that bit is played out. Now we're going to see what's happening over here. And it's all going at the same time. You have moving pieces and you have to make it work. But it also just fucks up my whole time frame in my head, which I have with this film.
It's probably about an hour. This film is probably, in terms of when they race over to the hotel, about half an hour to an hour. That's it. But because you've got 8 or 9 people, you're cutting across and going through, it feels like it's longer. No, not even. It's like probably 15 minutes. What am I saying? When that deal falls through and they go to the hotel, there's no time at all. They pretty much go straight there. And they get a helicopter to go there. So they really get there like that. Yeah, it's true. It's funny how the time in this film works, where it's 100 minutes and a good hour of it covers 15 minutes. So it's pretty much an action Magnolia. That's good. Action Magnolia.
Yeah, but in Magnolia, it's easier to make it work because stuff that happens sort of at the same time, there's still time between those things. You can sort of make it like a map in your room. Then you're here, then you move over there, but still time progresses during the cut. And here...
No. Magnolia has far more going on than this. In terms of what's happened, I was kidding. That film has far more. I love how everyone said my favorite criticism of Magnolia is I'm going into a tangent, but I will say it for this too, that, oh man, Magnolia needs an editor. And I'm like, have you seen that film? That film is some of the best editing ever, because you have to consider it's like a 5-hour film with the amount of emotion and things that happen. And it's cut to 3, and it happens like bang, 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 bang when you watch it. This one, it's not, they don't have the same emotional stakes whatsoever. It's like less than a third, but I love the cutting in this film as well. I will say.
Yeah, I think the biggest emotional resonance that this movie is supposed to have is look at all this cool stuff.
Yeah,
it's fine. It works, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you for.
Well, I don't know, the bit where he goes in to see Ray Liotta in the elevator, and Ray, he saves Alicia Keys, and Alicia Keys saves Common, and they have that whole little dramatic thing at the end. I'm like, that's kind of cool. I'm kind of emotionally invested. Kind of. There's a deleted scene, funny enough, of Martin Henderson, is that his name? The character who kills Chris Pine at the end, where he's got 3 fingers.
Yeah, I don't know what his name is, but yeah, so that dude.
I think it's Martin Henderson. Sorry, I should know that off the top of my head. Hey, there's a scene towards the end before Ryan Reynolds goes to the hospital where he's driving in the Tremors car, that beautiful car they have, and he passes Ryan Reynolds, and Ryan Reynolds goes, "Where are you going?" And he goes, "Oh, I think I'm going to Mexico." And he goes, "Can I come with you?" And he goes, "Yeah, sounds good." And Ryan Reynolds gets in the car and drives off. And then I was like, "That's a great scene. Why did you cut that?" It's because the next scene's the hospital, and I'm like, they should have just started a friendship in Mexico. But yeah, random little tidbit.
So that's why you are less you're less enthused by the ending, maybe.
Yes, I was like, I want the friendship in Mexico where they talk things over.
I think Joel Edgerton is really interesting in this film. When he's still playing Hugo Krupp himself, I'm not a big fan of that because it's a very weird role, but he sort of does make it convincing that after that he's another dude with a mask on.
Yes.
And he just has to stand around looking weird in a way and a bit intense. But he manages it very well. It makes his whole performance way more interesting there than it is at the start of the film, where he's a weird Eastern European bloke who's jizzed over a jacket.
Yeah. Every time you bring up a performance or a scene, I'm like, fuck, this film is strange. Because I forgot about the Joel Edgerton, face swap. And I love how his character wasn't grounded to begin with. Like you said, a weird Eastern European guy who's just jizzed all over a jacket, and then gets shot, and then gets his face replicated, and then acts weird and has the weirdest song choice when he's entering the room. That I think the song's called Big White Cloud. And it's like, what the fuck is this? And at the same time, you've got Jeremy Piven having like a mental breakdown in the mirror with the different eye. And I'm like, I love all that. I love anytime this film just goes off the rails. I'm like, you keep going, honey. Like, you keep going off those rails. I do agree. I think his performance there is great. And fun story, I told Joel Edgerton that. I've met him.
Really?
And I said, hey, I love you in Smokin Aces. Yeah. Because he's Australian,
of course.
So he was in Sydney, and I was like, and he goes, "That's the movie you love?" And I was like, out of all the things I've done, I'm like, I love Smokin Aces. And he goes, mate, I admire you saying that. That's the first I've had for that one. That was fun. No one likes that one, and I'm like, I do. I
think the first time I sort of noticed,
because even my mum doesn't like that one.
I think the first time I noticed him was in Animal Kingdom. So yeah. Australian film.
Yeah, and then he did this before Animal Kingdom, and I'm like, okay, yeah. I think this is one of his first American roles, and I'm just like,
it was also in King Arthur, right?
You went downhill. Did you was he in King Arthur, the 2004 film?
Something like that, yeah. He's had a couple more things, just tiny stuff brewing before getting really noticed.
Was he in Kingdom of Heaven, or am I going crazy? No, I don't think he was in. Let me have a look at that. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, he was in a few things, but he did that. Let me look this up because now it's boggling my mind. But yeah, I did tell Joel Edgerton that, and he was just like, what are you talking about? But I think his performance is great in that too. I definitely agree.
One of the big criticisms I do have of this film, which I just think is a weird choice to put into any movie, is in the big shootout scene at the elevators, right?
Yes.
So Hanson's character is a sniper from who's in a different building outside another hotel with a huge rifle shooting shit.
Oh, the
up.
50. Yeah. Yes.
Right. So she shoots a couple of FBI guys. Ryan Reynolds is there, and he and a couple of the others start shooting at the neighboring hotel. Just not concerned at all whether there are people. Probably that whole building is full of people. They just don't care.
I've never thought of that. Now that you've said it, I'm just like, you're just opening up these beautiful revelations of this film. Firstly, I have no defense over that behavior. Secondly, I think we've established that Ryan Reynolds is not great at his job. That's why he was left in the dark. It all comes full circle. Third, by that point, you have had so much weird nonsense happening, them being illogical and irrational and dangerous and shooting at a building which has families. That's surely that can't stop you in loving the film. Or not loving the film, that can't surely stop you from going, no, I'm out of this film now. The bunny head was fine. The dead Ben Affleck conversation was great. But them shooting at a building, I'm out.
For me, it was a build-up.
Shit happen.
Yeah.
But you're not wrong. You were right, by the way. Sorry to interrupt. You were right. He was in King Arthur. Good call. Right. And he was in Attack of the Clones, so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's also in the third Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith, as the uncle of Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. There you go. You know more about Joel than I do. Yeah.
It's because I had a peek at his IMDb page a couple of days ago. That's.
I was like, he's from Sydney. I know all about him. I don't need no IMDb. You were right.
No worries. But all the points you make about the FBI shooting at it, and it's after all this other ridiculous stuff. It's all true. It's not. There is plenty of stuff. This is not the thing to get hung up about, but still it's after a build-up of stuff that I have seen that already sort of gets my goat, and this is the thing where I go, okay, so this is where it culminates a bit for me. This is the thing where it's just obviously not the best thing to do.
They are absolutely not thinking about anyone in that moment because they're being shot at and they don't know where they're being shot at from.
And they can also just go and hide. That's just the thing. No. They don't have to shoot back.
They've never had this situation before. They just send up a
team into the other. Yeah.
These are rookies, okay? This is their first run-in with Taraji P. Henson. I can't blame them.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
It does fall into a sort of a trap for certain comedy projects that I notice sometimes in other stuff, where you mainly get stories of people who are being bad at their jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel that this has an element of that. Now, with I would say with the assassin played by Nestor Cabranel, El Estrago, which by the way doesn't mean the plague. Plague is plaga, and that's just a detail. But it has to be sad. Sorry, but so with him, the being bad at his job maybe is him getting weird with Matthew Fox after he's killed him and getting way too intense with that. So there's maybe a character flaw with him there, which also, maybe leads to his demise. I don't know. But with other people, it's a bit more obvious, like with the Tremor brother, who can just go and charge the guy with the chainsaw that he's trying to kill at that point. But he goes and does weird things with the lamp. Goes full Texas Chainsaw Massacre at that point before he charges in, and then he gets shot by Common.
Excuse me. Firstly, he just lost his brother. He lost one of his tremor brothers. I think you're being too harsh on these people who are going through terrible, terrible things that have happened. Like, Ryan Reynolds has surely, and at his job, he's not that bad, but he's just not anything. I don't think, if I were being shot by a sniper from across the building, I wouldn't be thinking about the families on vacation. I would be like, I'm going to shoot at you because this is too intense and I don't know what's going to happen next. Secondly, if I lost my brother when I'm having a chainsaw fight and I would be furious. And these guys are clearly fucking insane.
But you're furious at the guy, not at the fucking lamp.
The chandelier is secondary. He's venting out his frustrations, and then he goes out. Like he's just yelling to the heavens. But in doing so, the chandelier was in the way. This is all the emotional stuff, man. I thought you'd get it. I'm sad that you don't. That's okay. Again, maybe these film lecturers were right. The chandelier, Illustrata does not mean the plague. I don't know what Illustrata means.
It means destruction or damage.
Oh, we could have just said that. The plague doesn't mean anything. The plague doesn't. Just call them the bulldozer or the destruction.
Yeah. Would have been fine. Also, I was just wondering, I don't know if you remember it from the first time you saw it, but with the big reveal at the end, that the big guy in charge of the mafia, who used to be a big hitman, that he was in fact the dude from the FBI after loads of facial reconstructions and stuff like that. Did it take you long to figure? Was it a big reveal for you at the end of the film, or did you figure it out somewhere along the line?
It was kind of neither, because I wasn't guessing. Purely because I didn't think there was going to be a twist in this thing. I just thought it was going to be a collection of weird shit happening up until the very end, and that's it. That's one. So I wasn't guessing. Two, it was the reveal, but I wasn't shocked or surprised. I think I was too invested in everything else that just happened and being so happy for that when that happened, I felt almost indifferent to it. I'm like, yeah, cool. You wrap this up however you want. I'm so in. Truly, the scene with the Tremor brothers exiting the elevator and that build up with the security guards and Common walking back slowly, all of that, I was like, this is the best. And all that, the way they blocked all of that, where when it came to that ending, I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, fair enough. That's really what I was like. And then when he pulls the plugs, I'm like, yeah, cool. Yeah, all right. Yeah, cool.
Because on my first watch, once they say plastic surgery in connection with the old mob dude, I figured, the other guy had facial. He was talking about plastic surgery. Oh, he's the same guy. Yeah. Fine.
Yeah.
And then in the end, I thought it was also very weird that it's sort of almost like they pull a bait and switch. Like the big reveal isn't that. It's that Buddy Aces is actually his son.
Yeah.
Oh my God, big reveal. And then they still do the reveal after that of he is actually the guy from the FBI. And I thought, but this was this wasn't like rocket surgery, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're not wrong. Where it does feel like, I'm like, did Universal twist your hand at this because they saw the rest of the film and said you really need a twist or something to tie this, because we just saw Jason Bateman in a thong. You need to have a twist for an ending. I've always been indifferent to that. Not indifferent, but I'm like, yeah, cool. Fair enough. You do whatever.
Yeah.
Because I love all the stuff leading up to it. And all the weird
I understand.
The weird little monologues that people have, the characters have, all of them. They all have little, reads of the world. They all have little, sayings or phrases or monologue. Even Chris Pine, he goes, that's the way of the world, fate just up and fucks you for no good reason. And I'm like, that's the movie I'm here to see. I don't care about this other stuff. In rewatching it from time to time, I'm like, yeah, cool. But I can understand watching this, seeing that going, or just like, really? You thought this was gonna pull one up from under me? But yeah. To me, the biggest twist is how strange everything else is. That's the film's twist.
I understand.
Improvement Dazio.
I would say that the first thing is I would have made Buddy Aces. I would have made it more funny. Because I think he's meant to be funny.
Yeah.
But he just comes off as weird, the way he deteriorates and tries to remain the cool guy in the room, especially against Common, and doing his card tricks and stuff like that. And I sort of understand why he's deteriorating as well. Like he's this ridiculous guy who has to be kept alive by the FBI and certain other people, while he certainly is not a person who's worth being kept alive by any means.
Yes.
So I think there's supposed to be like a comic tension in there, but and I don't think it's Jeremy Piven's fault. I just think that there's some weird decisions in the directing and in the writing where I just think it doesn't really gel for me.
That's fair. Because I don't disagree with that, but I think in rewatching it, I think there's another angle I took with that approach as to why he's not very funny and he's kind of annoying and he's very odd. Like everything he does is...
He's especially really annoying.
He's annoying.
That's what got me the most.
He's annoying and odd. And then I think I worked out why he's like that and he's not very funny. Like even that speech about the jizzing on the jacket is not very funny. It's amusing, but it's not funny. And I'm like, why? What are you trying to accomplish with this? And he's just a brat in all senses of the word. I think it's because you're rooting for the villains. You're rooting for the hitmen, and so is the movie. The movie's not on Jeremy Piven's side. You're meant to find him really annoying. And it's meant to be more fascinating that he can see that he's fucked when he's looking in the mirror doing all those weird tricks and having a coke spiral. I think it's just meant to be fascinating that he's someone who knows he's doomed. Like he knows that there's no real way out of this. And the one little bit of humanity he had is gone because he sold out the loyal people he had. So I don't disagree with that, but I think the weird angle is that you're meant to, it's almost intentional because you want the hitmen to win. But that's just...
There's more existentialism in there, which I hadn't noticed. Maybe, yeah, you have a point.
that's just my feeling. But I don't disagree with that. That's cool. Yeah.
Another thing is, I think that Joe Carnahan, he's really talented at building scenes and stuff like that. I don't think, especially that everything needs all the editing it gets in here, but it does move. So I'm not going to diss him for that. I also hear that Terrence Malick is a fan of this film, so he has some things to say about that probably.
Yes, yes he does.
But I would say that Joe Carnahan maybe could use a script doctor to work some stuff out a bit better.
I agree with that. I think there is... I think those scenes that go very weird and have those weird moments and turn and are just all out, just strange, I think in a good way. I think that's from the directing. I think that's him going, I had intentions for this scene where Matthew Fox gets killed and he gets the key from him. Great, that's the plot over. The stuff with the existentialism, I think is almost a credit to him as a director, because that scene kind of works, but in the writing of it, it's flimsy in theory. Does that make sense? I agree with that. I do.
Yeah.
I think The Grey is probably his best script.
Okay.
Have you seen...
I still haven't seen that one.
Oh, The Grey's fantastic. Did you like Narc? Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen that either.
No.
I think those are the two that I really want to give a chance. Yeah, I have seen the A-Team, so by now not very much impressed by Joe Carnahan.
My heart broke.
But I have been with his direction in this, so at least there's that.
Okay, that's cool, because I think if you watch Narc, you're probably gonna go, what the fuck is Smokin Aces? You might like it less, because Narc is very grounded, very well directed, and it's really well written. And that has a twist as well, but a very good twist, and a really clever, interesting, smart, and it's all very level-headed. Whereas this is the opposite. I'm like, someone let you loose. And The Grey is very existential and very... kind of beautiful, I can't believe I'm saying. So I think this is a mix. I think this is a mix of all his attributes and kind of his flaws. So that's cool.
Yeah. And I think that I would have done some things in the editing where you just make clear that stuff is happening at the same time. So the timing feels less of like tricks where you can see that stuff is happening at the same time, maybe in cross cuts, how do you say, split screens maybe, or maybe you wind stuff back a bit so you can see that this is just so it doesn't feel as off as it does now.
Yeah.
I especially had that on the second viewing, but also on the first viewing I felt like this doesn't seem to really fit in my head or something.
Yeah, fair enough. That's fair. I think that...
But that's just a tiny...
Well, I think that also might be part of the writing too, where like if you're not convinced of all the characters and their decisions, and especially because a lot of the things they do are odd and a lot of odd things are happening, that editing, I think the editing is great, but I can see it being jarring, especially with a timeline. Does that make sense? Because it's a lot of mishmash, and that's because of the writing and because of the choices, and it just makes the editing feel more jarring than it is. But that's just my...
Yeah, maybe you could fix it in the writing, like making sure that you realize that someone is being stuck at some point for a bit of time. And not just in the elevator, because that's in there, but also once they... Yeah, I don't know.
That's fair. No, that's cool. That's cool.
Could have been more of that. But I'm just... I think these are the main improvements that I have. And I think that would already just make it work for more people and give you less of huff when you mention this film in film school.
I'm kind of hoping... I wish that those notes were even more of a problem, so those guys at film school would get angrier. No, that's fair. That's totally fair. No. There's a lot of flaws with the film. I think it just got me excited as a director, or just as someone who wants to make movies, to just try things, like go big and go out there. And I think there is a lot of that in this. Like there's scenes in this that, and it's funny because it got released around the same time as Shoot 'Em Up. Have you seen Shoot 'Em Up?
Yeah, I've seen Shoot 'Em Up.
Did you like Shoot 'Em Up?
I liked it plenty when I saw it, but it's more than 10 years ago that I saw it. So
because that was a film where I'm like, yeah, Shoot 'Em Up's like that too. Then I rewatched Shoot 'Em Up, and this Shoot 'Em Up is far more sexist, like really sexist, and I don't remember it being that bad. But now it's like, oh man, it made this look like the vagina monologues. It was bad, like the sexism, and then and it also but it also showed me why I like Smokin Aces over something that's actively trying to be silly. Whereas this is trying to be grounded, and then it tries to earn being weird. Whereas Shoot 'Em Up is just a collection of nonsense and Bugs Bunny, and I'm like, nah, try. And that's what I think it is. The film just tries to be different and tries to be really, whether it's successful is very much up to. I can see people hating this. I truly can. So that's fair. Yeah.
But maybe it makes you tickle even more.
It does a little bit. Where it's like, I'm giving it the thumbs...
This is for me.
Yeah, I'm giving it thumbs down. Oh, please. More thumbs down. Loathe it. Yeah. My girlfriend still won't watch it, so that's fair. She saw the elevator scene with the Nazis, and she goes, yep. And that whole sequence where they're just murdering people with shotguns and chainsaws. And she was just like, You left film school for this. And I'm like, gladly.
Right, and also ask you for 3 recommendations. So I'm very curious to see what you have in store.
Yeah, well, they're not that exciting, I'm afraid.
Tip 1!
The first one, actually, no, I will. Okay, Southland Tales is number 1.
All right.
Have you seen Southland Tales?
I have, yeah.
And you're a fan from memory, or?
I liked it.
Okay, great. Southland Tales is the movie. When I saw that and this at the same time, I was like, let's fuck off regular films. Let's fuck off being structured and grounded and formal. Let's go wild. Southland Tales is absolutely a big recommendation in that it has a big collection of ideas, throws everything up against the wall, gives you characters that are very weird and kooky and people you'd never see in real life. Although with Trump as president, it's a little, you can question that. It's also beautifully made, and it really just goes bonkers. And I think that's a great film. That's my recommendation, Southland Tales.
I was just having a peek in my list of previous recommendations to see if Theodore had recommended this one, because it's also a very big film for him, and you guys bonded over this as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he actually wanted to talk about this, but then I said, but I actually also like it, and he was like,
I know. I was going to pretend I hated it. Then when we got on here, what a masterpiece. And you were just there going, no. I had a look at that list, and I'm like, thank God that's not on there. So I'm glad for that. So that's one.
Yeah.
The second film
Tip 2!
Is John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it yet. I want to.
I recommend that film because that's a film that has almost the same Rotten Tomatoes score or the same opinion as Smokin Aces, where it's just schlock, where it's just junk. But I think Ghosts of Mars is junk, but it's beautifully made. That it's like John Carpenter. It tells you that John Carpenter never really lost it. He just wanted to make sillier films. To me, that's what Ghosts of Mars is on a plastic set. It has an Anthrax soundtrack, and it's just becomes like a death metal action film. But it's beautifully shot, and it's beautifully staged, and it's really well blocked, and it wants to be fun.
I didn't even know that Anthrax did the soundtrack for that.
Yeah, John Carpenter and Anthrax joined forces to do the soundtrack, and there is...
Now I really have to see it, because I used to listen to Anthrax a lot.
Oh, they're great. I love Anthrax. And I didn't know that until a rewatch recently, and I'm like, there's a scene where Ice Cube and the lead ghost, the leader of the Ghosts of Mars, are having like a fucking karate fight, and he's got a shotgun, and it's got Anthrax in the background. And I'm like, this is amazing. You made John Carpenter leave filmmaking for this masterpiece. Get out. I recommend that. I think that film is due for a reevaluation. And again, it's a thing where it's big, it's silly, but it's beautifully directed, and I think there's a lot to get out of it.
Yeah.
Tip 3!
And can I throw... And I'm throwing a curveball here with the last one. Will I? No. Give me a second. Let me think, because I have two movies. I'm thinking which one I should go for.
You can name both of them.
Okay, let's do it. The first one I'm going to say is The Hunted.
Yeah.
By William Friedkin. Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, that's a film that no one's seen, and I don't know why. It's Benicio del Toro and Tommy Lee Jones, and it's directed by William Friedkin. It's one of Friedkin's best movies, and again, beautiful direction, simple story, and Tommy Lee Jones is the guy that in the film who's like a combat leader who's taught Benicio del Toro everything he knows. Benicio del Toro gets PTSD and goes rogue. Yeah. And it's killing people. And he learns to kill people by making weapons out of anything that's in the forest, because he usually lives in the forest. So Tommy Lee Jones and him are on foot chasing each other and trying to kill each other with like knives they've made out of sticks. And it's
sounds
crazy.
like perfect Friedkin territory.
It's freaking up the wazoo, and it's so beautifully directed. And again, it's a 90-minute chase movie, and it's like got some of the best directing I've ever seen, like in that movie.
Cool.
And the second one,
Tip 3.5,
is I'm going to go with In the Cut, which has no connection with any of these films, other than I think it's a great movie, and it's got a very low Rotten Tomatoes score, and I think it's fantastic.
Also one that I haven't seen yet. What's it about again?
That one's Meg Ryan plays this teacher, and she witnesses something with a man and a woman, and then that woman gets murdered that evening. Right. And then the police interrogate her, and one of the cops is Mark Ruffalo, and she thinks that Mark Ruffalo potentially is involved with this murder, but she starts being attracted to him, and it has that relationship of finding something sensual and sexy, but also being scared of it, and that relationship between sex and violence as well, I think, is a big one.
All right, cool.
Yeah. So that's my two. That's my. I know I did 4 there. I'm sorry, but
that's fine. That's great. I think they're good recommendations, and especially films that are all on the scene. So that's always a good way to go.
Yes, perfect. And they've all got low Rotten Tomatoes scores or low standards. So let's get the reevaluations going.
Exactly.
And so we fought and we battled as we beat each other up. Both of us tried hard, we both failed. Yes, I had you
as we say, is it. Thank you so much for listening. And thanks to Chris for, tuning in on Zoom to have this conversation with me. And also, very, very many thanks for setting this up to Theodore. This was fun, wasn't it? I thought so. Anyway, are there maybe any recommendations I can give you? Well, yes. Last week I saw maybe the big one for this year. It's called The Green Knight, a very stylistic night adventure. It looks stunning. It is very weird. It was made by the very talented David Lowery. It ticks all my boxes. Go watch it in cinemas and enjoy. Another thing I did this week was I grasped the chance when I could see the Royal Tenenbaums on the big screen for the very first time in my life. And it was fantastic as ever. I can quote the film by heart, much of it, but it still felt new in a few ways for me. I loved it. And this time it touched me very deeply on an emotional level. I would argue that there's much more to Wes Anderson's film than just quirkiness. But hey, maybe that's a story for another podcast. Anyway, this was a cinema production, presented and edited by me, Ruud de 20e Eeuwse Vos, and with plenty of lovely jingles by the genius that is Roy Grutters. Special thanks to my patrons who make this all possible. So that's Casey the Great, Ed Huisman, Onno Lubbers and Niels Timmer. And of course, you can find us on patreon.com/duimpjeworstelen if you also want to chip in a bit financially. And also you can find us on the social media. So that's Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And if you have some hate mail for me, you can send it to the very Dutch sounding email address duimpjeworstelen@gmail.com. That's duimpjeworstelen@gmail.com. That's it. All right. See you again very soon. And of course, a very big bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, could we have an enormous round of applause, please, for our host, who has once again succeeded in bringing to us a plethora of top-notch, cinematographically themed entertainment. We have had an absolute ball, have we not? Next time on Thumb Wrestling.
En het werd dan steeds vager en vager. En dan heb je eigenlijk aan het einde dat toneelstuk wat een beetje het dieptepunt is. En als het dan afgelopen is, dan denk je van aan het einde heb je dan toch het idee dat het een serieuze horrorfilm moest zijn. Mm-hmm. Dan heb ik toch een beetje heel wisselend gevoel dat ik dacht van ik vind dit een tegenvaller.
This podcast employs a strict only like and subscribe if you really want to policy. Okay, bye.